Are you a service-based business owner looking to increase profits to fund your lifestyle? Well, this podcast is for you. We bring you inspirational guests sharing actionable tips to solve many of the struggles you face each and every day. And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Hello to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. And if you enjoy it, please subscribe. If you're a regular, thanks for your support. Love to get your feedback at paul@buildlivegive.com. It means the world to me when you do. Welcome to take notes, and the interviews are fully transcribed. So our guest is someone who followed in the footsteps of their mother as an executive assistant. They loved the role. And when a series of family tragedies happened, they moved to work from home in 2014. They loved it and decided to give it a go themselves. This has turned into a VA matching platform, which is helping business owners and entrepreneurs around the world find their perfect VA. So why listen? They reveal the 10 steps they take to find the right VA for you. The two skills people often miss when hiring a VA, the two essential skills, and the different types of VAs and how to match them to your needs. So they've kindly given a hiring handbook at the end. So over to Melissa Smith from the PVA. Welcome, Melissa Smith from the PVA to the Build, Live, Give podcast. Welcome, Melissa.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, look, it's great having you on. I had an amazing conversation with you when we first met. Know that everyone listening now will get a lot of value from this brilliant conversation. But why don't we start with something your family or friends know about you that we may not?
So something my family and friends know about me that most people don't, and I would say I even shocked my family and friends with this, but I was once a certified cheerleading coach, even though I was never, ever a cheerleader in life.
Right. So obviously, tell us more about that.
Well, my daughter, she wanted to get into cheerleading, and I wanted to be an active part of that. Cheerleading is actually a very dangerous, or can be a very dangerous sport. There's tons of injuries that go along with it, and I was just really concerned about the safety of it all. I was also very concerned about what routines might be done and, how provocative they can get even at a very early age. And so I thought, well, the only way for me to get on the inside and make sure that I'm part of change, because a lot of people raise their hand and complain, but they don't have anywhere to fall back on. They don't have an action item. They don't have another course of action to take. And so I wanted to be able to, if I had to say something and not only raise my hand, but I wanted to say, well, then let me step in and help. And I'm a certified cheerleading coach, so I can.
Excellent. And what age was your daughter then?
My daughter was probably 5 or 6 at the time, and we lived in a town that had a very competitive cheerleading program in the town that was not tied to a school or anything else, but competitive cheerleading is really big business. And I thought, if she's going to get into this now and this becomes what she does and this is her sport of choice, I wanted to be part of that. Turns out she never enjoyed it. She had a couple stints where she thought she wanted to get into it, but she just never enjoyed it. But I had to say, I learned a lot and it was worth it. I would do it again.
The reason she didn't enjoy it wasn't due to the coach. But I know that when my son played football, soccer, wherever you are in the world, and I had to coach him, and I'd never played the sport at all. And I'm thinking that organising 5 or 6-year-old girls is a lot easier than trying to control to 10-year-old boys on a soccer pitch or a football pitch. It was an absolute nightmare. I did it for a couple of years, and it was.
It really just depends on what your temperament is. I feel more comfortable coaching boys. I have an older son as well. I feel much more comfortable in that environment than coaching girls. There's a lot that goes into that. And in fact, this is the most ironic part. When my son was in college, he was actually a cheerleader and he was a stunt person. So the person I thought who was going to be a cheerleader wasn't my daughter. It turned out to be my son, and he loved it. He loved the stunting aspect of it, had a great time.
Brilliant. Excellent. So, I know you sort of were an executive assistant and you went to being a mum as an executive assistant, and now you're heavily involved both as, well, in the industry, let's say that, and I know we'll talk about that more in a moment, but just tell me a little bit about that career journey.
Sure. I was an executive assistant for over 15 years. I went to secretary school back when that's what we were called. And it's what I always knew I wanted to do because my mom was also an assistant. And my mom she's just a saint. She really is. And she's so incredible. And thinking back to her life and how she just conducted herself, I just wanted to be like her. And going into the office and speaking with her coworkers and her boss and those that she was supporting, everyone always said the same thing. They said, we just could not run this office without your mom. Your mom is the best. Your mom knows everything. And I thought, well, I want to do that. I want people to say that about me. And so that's what I did. And I absolutely loved it. I loved every job that I had. I loved being an assistant. I was so fortunate in really seeking that out and always seeing that side of it. I never worked for a company where I felt like my role wasn't valued or I didn't have the opportunity to grow or learn. And nothing was more evident than that when I was working in Georgia. My husband died suddenly, and a year later, we were moving back home to my home state of California. And again, I found a job that I loved. I was working at a wonderful private independent school. It was just amazing. I enjoyed going into work every single day. But then my daughter came to me, and she was going to be a senior in high school. And she said, this is not my home. I don't want to graduate from here. I want to go back home to Georgia. And I knew I had to give that to her. So I went to my boss and I said, I got to go. I'm sorry. And he said, we don't want to lose you. How can we keep you? And I said, well, I can do most of what I do virtually. I don't have to be here in the office. And he said, okay, let's do that. And so I became the first person at that school to work remotely. And I worked remotely and virtually for a few months and had this taste of freedom and flexibility that I had never experienced before in my life. I grew up in California where commuting a few hours is not uncommon. Yes. I lived in a commuter town. It's just what you did, and it's just part of the job process if you want to make more money and then kind of, go over here and have a better living situation with the cost of living there. Then it became so much more than that. It wasn't just that I lost my commute. It was that I was doing different things and I got to experience different things. And that freedom and flexibility, just having that small taste of it it just like lit a fire in me.
And when was that, Melissa?
That was I went remote in August 2014. And then they sent out contracts just a few weeks later after that, because we always signed contracts for the following year. And I sent my contract back unsigned. I said, I want to try this. I think I can do this for myself. I'll finish up my contract, I promise. But I really want to see if I can do this. And they were so supportive, and they said, we're here to support you. Anything we can do to help. You always have a job here. Just do what you need to do for you. And so I started my own virtual assistant business and never looked back.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, that's a great journey. And it's interesting. My father he worked at Coca-Cola. That's how I sort of fell into working for Coca-Cola, even though I wasn't really meant to. So, similar to your mum, sort of continuing the journey. And then, yes, I left similar to yourself. And once again, have never looked back. And what have been some of the biggest hurdles the last 6 years of running your own business?
Well, that first year, I often say it's a joke I can only laugh about now. So I knew I wanted to do it. I was super committed. I wanted to be with my family without having to take off work. I didn't want to make the choice between work and my family. I was doing a lot of traveling. We actually had a lot of deaths that year, and it was very overwhelming. My husband died within 3 months. My mother-in-law died within 3 months. My other mother-in-law died a few months after that. Our dog died. I mean, there was just a lot of things going on. And it got to the point where I was terrified to pick up my phone. And there was all these things happening, and I needed to be with family. I wanted to be with my family more than ever. And that's why I never looked back. However, it was really hard to paint a picture of the future because I had no idea what I was doing. I was the best employee ever. I was the hardest worker ever. Those things don't make you someone who runs a great company. I had no idea how to get clients. I had no idea why people would hire me and what was valuable to them. because when I told them, it was just too much. And if I tell you, if one more person had told me to sell the sizzle, not the steak, I was just going to lose my mind. I'm like, what does that mean? What are you telling me? And so it was a really hard journey that first year. It was really hard. And my journey is not everyone's journey. There's plenty of people who did not experience what I experienced becoming a virtual assistant. And that's, for me, what made it so much harder. Because around me, it seemed like everyone had clients. Everyone was doing well. People were making six figures in 6 months. And that was the complete opposite of what I was doing. But then, I did the things and I took the risks that you're supposed to do. So I knew I had to hire a business coach. I couldn't afford to hire a business coach, but I knew that if I was going to fail, I might as well fail knowing that at least I did the thing that could have made my business survive versus not doing anything and relying on myself, which had already proven not to work.
Was that the key turning point when you
It was a
hired
key
your
turning
coach?
point.
Yeah.
It was a key turning point. She had her work cut out when she was working with me. Like, I was sub-zero business level, and everything that she was telling me seemed polar opposite to what it was to be an assistant, to what it was to be a good employee. And she just constantly drilling into me, you are no longer either of those things. And I remember we had this really intense conversation because I said, how many people do you want me to eliminate from the services I could offer? And what does that even look like? You're telling me to do less and charge more. I feel like I'm ripping people off. And she said, you have it all wrong. And you need to stop thinking that way. And value is value. And I want you to turn away every single person who's not willing to throw money at you.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, well, what you said makes sense. I don't know how to do that. And she said, well, now that you finally are listening to me, I will teach you how to do that. I will show you how to do that. But you have to stop fighting me. Has to be the key turning point for us. And I said, okay.
Great. And look, sounds like an amazing person. What was her name?
Her name is Chris. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. Make Your Mark is her coaching. Krista is her first name. I can't. My girlfriend's name is so close to her, I keep on wanting to go back to it. But her coaching business is Make Your Mark.
Great. Excellent. Well, we'll definitely put a link in there for anyone else that wants to go through a similar journey. So we'll move in next into the build section. So I know you sort of wear two hats, but why don't you talk about each individually quickly first? So when people come to you and say, hey, Melissa, what do you do? How do you best answer that?
I tell them I match clients to virtual assistants, to the right virtual assistant.
Great. And what type of clients?
So my clients are similar to me, and what they want is to throw money at a problem. And what that means is not that they're, just wasteful, that they don't care, that they, have so much money, they're just throwing it around. That's not the case at all. But when someone comes to me, it's that they're telling me, I'm going to throw this money at you, solve my problem, tell me when it's done. And what I do for them is give them a done for you service for the right virtual assistant. I know exactly who to hire after a consultation. I tell them what they can expect to pay, how the VA is going to make the most impact, where to start. I conduct all the interviews. I do the reference checks. I do the background check. I give them a guarantee, a 3-month guarantee, and I have a 98% match rate. So when they come to me, they know all they have to do is interview the 3 finalists to figure out who they feel most comfortable with, who they resonated with, what really worked for them, and then they're off to the races.
Great. So what do you know about matching a great client with a VA that many people miss?
The communication strategy and the ideal client fit. So, we go through these things all in our life, and they're building blocks to every place that we're going to go in life. And when I was working in an office, my boss was always part of the hiring process. Whoever I worked for was always part of the hiring process. So that made me part of the hiring process. And what I learned early on was to look for the signs of what a good match looked like. And so often people would say, oh, this is the candidate. This is the candidate. They went to this school. They did this thing. They're great. And I would say, well, what's in it for them? I mean, are we just saying we're just like the best place to work? How long before they get bored with us? Or I would see a resume and it wasn't the best written, but there was so many key things in there that they said that matched what our company did already. And I would say, what about that person? And they're like, I don't know, it doesn't really say, or, they didn't go to the school, or, they would have all these things. And I said, I would put my money on them, because you're not hiring the person because they had the best resume. I mean, it helps, but they're not going to be writing resumes all day for you. Let's put that aside and concentrate on the other things. And what I found through the years, and what I found when people would come to me and they already didn't have a good experience, the communication strategy wasn't there. And so what that means is, when you have a good communication strategy with your virtual assistant, it means they're communicating with you in your manner, your medium, your tone, your verbiage. So often I see it reversed, and that's the tail wagging the dog. If you can only communicate with your VA via text or via Slack or via some project management tool or phone, and that's not your style, that's not how you would do it, it's never going to work, because you're never going to communicate on the fly. And you have to be able to do that. And then the other side is the ideal client fit. And this is for the VA. Most VAs can do what they do for anybody, but it doesn't mean they necessarily want to. And there's a number of VAs out there who really don't even know who they want to work with. And that's not good for the client, because that doesn't play into retention. It doesn't play into good work. It doesn't play into, going above and beyond because they love what they're doing. And when I look at those websites, when I look at their LinkedIn profile, when I look at their social media handles, and they're telling me, oh, yes, I do all these things, and yes, I work with these kind of people, and I don't see that in anything of what they're doing, I have to question, do you even know what you're doing? Do you know who your client is? I don't even know if you work as an executive virtual assistant. I think you work more on the digital side or the technical side. All your posts seem to be about technology. Are you sure that this is the type of client that you want to bring on? Because that's not really what they're looking for. And so often I have to cut through that, because it's not fair to the client to match them with someone who can, yes, do the work, but doesn't show up excited. And you need that excitement. That VA should be excited to work with you, period.
Great. So, no, we don't have to name names, but just take me through a typical engagement. So, I work with a lot of service-based business owners. So I've referred you a service-based business owner to find a VA. Just quickly take us through the steps that they would go through.
Sure. We start off with a consultation that lasts anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. And we go through and I ask them the questions that I need to uncover: what makes them tick in their business, what drives them, how they measure success, what good looks like, the duties they want the VA to perform, their communication style, how they like to share files, really just a setup of how I'm going to write the job description. Then within 24 hours, I send them the job description. And my job descriptions are really unique. They're not anything that you're going to find online, because they're not only to attract the right VA, but they're to deter the wrong VA. So for instance, I've had a job description that said EVA with the ability to herd cats. And the number of people who responded and said, that's me. And I would go and I would look, and that was actually what they had on their website. That's what they had in their about section on LinkedIn. And they posted pictures of them with cats. Like, they really understand what it's like to work with those types of people and those types of companies. And then from there, I start the search process. I'll reach out to people when I know, for instance, that that's a company that they specialize in. So just, I think it was yesterday, someone posted, and it was a company that works, or a person who's a coach, and they work in NLP. And I know of a VA, and she specializes in working with people in the NLP field. So I immediately tagged her and said, I saw NLP, I thought about you. And you have VAs who I think about that with all the time. So it could be ClickFunnels, it could be technical sites, it could be websites, NLP, you name it. So I'll go through all my searches. I get all my interviews done in 5 business days. On the 6th business day, I send the client the 3 finalists, and then I set up the interviews on their behalf. At that point, I've either already done references or conducting references. Once the client begins interviews, I give them the questions to ask each VA to make sure each VA is offered the opportunity to answer the same questions, so there's less bias. And then once they tell me who they want to work with, I conduct the background check. From that point, then the client and the VA begin working together. I will also look through the contract and proposal and make sure that it all looks good. If there's ever an opportunity to negotiate or create a package that is both a win for the client and a win for the VA, I do that as well. And in packages, I've saved clients thousands of dollars, and I've made VAs thousands of dollars. So it really is a win-win situation, because I don't want anyone walking away thinking, oh, I got the better end of the deal, because that means there's not going to be a retention. Along with my matching success, I also have a great retention success for my clients. They continue to work with their VA for years, and that really helps their business. It helps the VA's business. Everyone wants that long-term relationship. No one has time for hiring. And that's the process. I check in with them a few weeks in, and then, of course, I have a 3-month guarantee.
Right. And is that 3-month guarantee, is that to replace someone, money back? What's the guarantee?
It's to replace them. If the VA doesn't work out, I'll replace them again within 3 months. And again, it's only happened on a few occasions. And typically it's because the client thought they knew what they wanted. And then when it got to it, they said, you know what? I really don't want that. I really don't find that as valuable as I thought that I would. Or the person that they originally interviewed, and they thought, yeah, she could do it, but I actually really like this person better. You can like a lot of people. It doesn't mean that you're going to work really well together.
Okay, brilliant. Well, look, 10 excellent steps there. So let's just dive into a couple of them. So you said search process. So I know you also have an association for VAs, but just tell us a little bit about how you're able to search and find the right people given the association that you run.
I've been building up my VA network since the very beginning of when I started my business. So I have an extensive list of VAs that I can contact, and anyone who wants to be matched with me also has to complete my own matchmaking form so that they have to answer questions that really tell me about them. So when I'm searching, I'm looking, and then they respond to me, and I start digging around. And I'm looking at their websites. I'm looking at their social media profiles. I'm looking at their LinkedIn profile. I'm looking at what they put on my matchmaking intake form. And does it all match? If it's all different, if it keeps on saying everything, that's a huge red flag. If they're telling me that, oh yes, this is a client that I love to work with, but I don't ever see anything like that on their site. I don't see anything on their social media profiles, on their LinkedIn, then it's another red flag. If they tell me they don't really know who their ideal client is or what their ideal work is, and I can't see a cohesiveness to that, that's a red flag. What I'm always looking for is, what do they have? How do they communicate? What are they saying that already matches this client? And it's there. You just have to find it. And sometimes the searches are real easy. I can match them in days. Other times I'm doing a lot of digging and a lot of searching, and I'm expanding my network, and I'm reaching out to people, and I'm reaching out to all my network. And it can get really intense. I appreciate the challenge, honestly, but I'm looking for that diamond in the rough, if you will, that is already saying the things that the client has told me. They're using the same language. They dislike and like the same things. They measure success the same way. It's not just about doing the work. We go into that later, and that's part of the references. But what does the client value? What is the assistant value? Do they match? That has to be there. And that's something that people often miss, because if you just go, well, who's like a Microsoft expert? Who's ever done a funnel? Who's set up CRMs before? The list is endless, but it doesn't mean that they're a good match to work together. And in fact, I have clients who come to me and they said, I had an assistant in the office for years, and I went out on my own and I tried to hire her, but it wasn't the same anymore. We just didn't seem to work together well. And that's because once you're virtual, things change. You don't have the same kind of follow-up. You don't have that same kind of organic communication. And that is the test of a true assistant. And that's a test of someone who really understands how to run a virtual assistant and be very present in a business. And in fact, the true measure of any assistant, whether human or AI, is the ability to anticipate needs. If you have an assistant and they're not anticipating your needs, they're really not a true assistant. They could be assisting you. They could be taking care of the tasks. They could be checking things off the list. But a true assistant knows how to anticipate your needs.
Yeah, look, I think you're right. And, virtual assistants, I know, range, there's so many, it's a bit like the word strategy, right? There's so many different versions of it. But just take me through I think you've got 3 tiers of virtual assistants, of people that help. I know they're not just virtual assistants, but just quickly take us through those 3 tiers and what the key differences are.
The 3 tiers of...
Yeah, like you say, there's technical, there's an executive assistant, and then there's a VA.
Sure. So there's many. If you have a need, there is a VA out there. I would say the most common is a general VA. And so this is someone who is going to answer emails, appointment scheduling, light travel, maybe some invoicing, light bookkeeping. They might have been an administrative assistant in an office. And then you have an executive virtual assistant. An executive virtual assistant is very much client facing and like a key person in the executive's role. So they might even be drafting emails. They might be sending emails on the client's behalf. Heavy international travel, more reports, more presentations, lots of board work might be involved. Serves as a liaison. And certainly when people think about how they're going to get in touch with that executive, they're going to go to the assistant first. And because they know that that person really handles and controls that other person's daily schedule and life and not just manage it, that person is also really going to set up and manage the flow of their executive to make sure that they're doing things that they need to do, that they're doing things on time, that they're getting key things done while they're working around the system and putting in people that they need to speak to at the appropriate time. Technical VAs, this is going to be people who are going to be setting up your websites, your lead pages, your lead magnets, making sure your integrations are working, all your systems are talking to themselves. And a really good tech VA is going to make sure that whatever system you're using, you are using it to its fullest before you add on another system. That is one that comes up all the time. They're like, oh, my friend got the system. I love it. I've just added it. And now you've just added this other thing to integrate. You don't really understand the pros and cons of it. And you already had something that could have done that for you. You just didn't use it because most people don't use all the things that their software provides. But these companies spend a lot of money to be an all-in-one for you, and they're constantly adding on. And a good tech VA will understand that for you.
Great. And, I hear a lot of people say, I'm not going to get someone until I've got everything sorted, right? So that's one school of thought. Or the other is, no, actually, you get someone and they help you sort it because, I'll go into my rationale. But which camp do you see working best?
So this comes up a lot in our association. And actually, one of my partners, my CMO, she doesn't work when systems aren't already in place because she has far too many questions for me. She doesn't like that style. I, on the other hand, I'm like, don't worry about it. I'll jump in and I'll take care of it. And so it really comes down to, does the person want to educate you through the process, or do they simply want to do the work and be done with it? Do they want everything streamlined in a system and have this really pretty chart of how things are going to go and follow that to a T? And I don't need that to get started. Some VAs do, some VAs don't. And again, that would be, what kind of client are you and what type of VA are you? I'm all about education, and I'm all about explaining how things work, and I'm all about giving options and researching what would be best, and then providing everything down and just having the client say, okay, let's do that. We'll choose B, we'll choose C, let's go with option 1. But not all VAs are like that. And again, no right or wrong, but you really have to know who you're working with. When I work with clients, particularly, they don't like questions. They like options. And so when I go to my clients and I have options for them, those options are down to, I've already negotiated this price. I've already asked this question. I've already asked, these 3 things. Here's everything presented to you. Which way do you want to go?
What we're going to do now is move on to the live section, but just reminding everyone, we're talking to Melissa Smith, and you can find out more about her and her wonderful business at the THE tierspva.com. So as I said, before we go in the live section, I'd like to talk about our quiz to help you work out if you're running a profit machine or a sweat box. Just go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/quiz and answer the questions in less than 5 minutes. You will be placed in one of 4 percentage ranges with custom actions, which include a free 45-minute strategy call to walk through a clear plan based on the exact results that you got through the quiz, and also a great chance to be like Melissa and come and share all of your knowledge and wisdom on this podcast. Just go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/quiz today. So the live section. So what are some of the daily habits, Melissa, that help you be successful?
Exercise is probably the number one, whether it be as a form of stress relief or a form of meditation. And whenever I am not exercising, I can feel it in my work, in my mind, and in my body. So no matter what that is, exercise has to be a part of that. Speaking to a family member is very important to me. So I speak to my family member at least one every single day. And that helps center me and helps me remind me not only why I do what I do, but when things don't go as planned, that it's not the end of the world. That's not the only thing that's important. And as long as my family is safe and healthy, then it helps me see the big picture and what's really important in life. And having a creative outlet, and whether that's reading or writing for me, being able to read or write about nothing and just feel like I was heard. And sometimes you're reading a book and you're like, wow, that person, they're like in my mind. They really understand, like they've answered the question that I've been pondering over for a long time, or they answered the question that I thought I had right and turns out I had it wrong. And writing for myself is just reminding me that I have a voice and I have thoughts, and sometimes we work through them, and sometimes they're, epiphanies, and other times it's, but I can talk about nothing and I can write about nothing and I still deserve to be heard.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? I haven't flown since 2016, or certainly internationally, and because of, where we are at the moment with the pandemic, it will be a long time. But that's the time that I used to get my most creative thoughts, was when I was actually on a plane. And it's probably because with corporate, working for Coca-Cola, I was in a plane, 3 to 4 days a week. But, I haven't been able to recover that. But what's your safe space? Like, where do you love to go and do that reading and writing?
Well, like you, I loved it on the plane. I really did. It was such a disconnect for me. And I just found it so inspirational. But I get my best thought when I'm running and when I'm on my long walks. Something just clicks because I can't turn my brain off. I have a real problem with it. And at some point when I'm done wondering why I'm running and why I'm out here, why am I doing this for, and blah, 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 like the negative thoughts that come into my mind about exercise when I think, I could be doing something else. But eventually I forget that I'm breathing and I forget that I'm doing those things, and I really get into this meditative state. Then I come out of it and it's like I have all these ideas. Everything is suddenly so clear. So for me, my new normal is actually getting back to my old routine, because I've had to find my new normal again. I have recreated it. I used to get so much creative juices flowing from going to museums and traveling to countries I had never been before and visiting cities I had never been before. And so I really had to work, like, what did I used to do? I used to do something. What was that? And I was a long distance runner. Long distance by my standards. I get into my sweet spot about 7 to 10 miles. So I'm working back up to that now.
Brilliant. Well, look, the next section is the give section. So what's a charity, a community that you're passionate about, and why?
I'm passionate about giving to missions, countries overseas or south of the border. And I like to give to the ones that are going to be there for the long haul. So I don't want to be giving money every month to someone who's just going to go drop off food. It's great. People are hungry. You need that. But I like to give to the mission programs that are there, who continue to go back, teach people new skills, build them the things that they need, train them to do the things that they need to do to provide for themselves. and be able to work because they want to. They don't want handouts. That's not beneficial to them. They don't get any joy out of that. They're thankful, but they don't really get any joy out of that. So anything that's missions related that really helps build up cities and communities and towns. And I've been giving to my church for as long as I've been going there. So 16 years. And to see the progression and to see like, okay, this town is self-sufficient now, or this place is doing really great. Now let's see where we can do the most good somewhere else and really plant roots there, not just fly by night kind of charities. I also love to give to teen moms and to dental care. Those are things that are near and dear to my heart because I've had experience with both of them. And there's not a lot of resources for that really speak to what goes on mentally when those things are happening.
Look, a charity I support is called the Purple House. So you can find it at purplehouse.org.au, and all the proceeds of my book go to that, and also a proportion of my revenue. So the last section is the action section, and this is where we get some rapid fire responses. So we need to shift gears and just quick, short answers. So the first one is, what are your top 3 personal effectiveness tips?
So personal effectiveness is just writing things down, making sure that I'm not trying to do it all myself, and getting as much sleep as possible.
Brilliant. And what's an essential piece of technology you use to run your business?
Email. I couldn't do anything without email.
It's funny, I don't touch my emails at all, but anyway.
Yeah.
And what's the best source of new ideas for you? You talked about reading, you talked about writing, but what are some of the best sources for you?
It can't be that. It's got to be the beach. Water.
Brilliant. And the last question is the big one. I always leave it to the end for that reason. But what impact do you want to leave on the world?
I want people to create life that make them have opportunity and afford them freedom and flexibility, so they don't have to choose between the thing that they have to do, between the thing that they want to do.
Excellent. Well said. So, as I said before, you can find out more about Melissa at thepva.com, but she's also kindly given a hiring workbook. So, you heard earlier in the interview, her 10-step process and what she goes through. So you can get the actual detail of that by going to thepva.com/hiring-workbook. Now, obviously that and everything else Melissa's mentioned will be in the show notes as well. So Melissa, absolute joy having you on today, and I really appreciate you giving us an insight into something I think is essential. I always say as a business owner, you need a computer, a phone, and a virtual assistant. So thanks for giving us another great option to go and help you who's listening now that you do not have one. I highly recommend following up with Melissa and getting a VA yesterday.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Brilliant. Thank you. Bye. Isn't Melissa just a ball of energy? And she is so passionate about what she does, and that came through on the interview. You can avoid the pain of a mishire from using her service. Just go and try it out. You can get the fully transcribed show notes at Paul Higgins Mentoring /podcast. I'd love to know, what is your biggest takeaway from Melissa? Please take a photo of the podcast that you've just listened to now and share it on your socials, mentioning Melissa and the PVA. You can find out more at thepva.com. And remember that brilliant hiring handbook is thepva.com /hiring-workbook. Once again, that'll be in the show notes. If you believe someone would benefit from the show, please share. They would love you for it. Find out if you're running a profit machine or a sweatbox in our quiz. Just go to paulhigginsmentoring.com /quiz. Please take action to build a profitable and sustainable business and stay well.
Thanks for listening to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you like what you heard, please share it and leave us a review. It would mean the world to us.